blue! You bought the color blue! What the?
Okay, so you're telling me no new map this year, no new operators this season, and you're gonna sell recolored skins? Now, I know that you made some skins that are new. This is cool. This has an animation. That's cool. But there's like 3 of these. And then a whole bunch of the other ones that you just recolored. What the flip? What the asset flip? Some dudes, I'm G, I yap about Rainbow Six. Today's yap is about the new Mute Protocol event. And I don't have an issue with the event. The event is actually fun. I don't necessarily mind them taking content and then putting it back in the game for me to play again. But during a season, when your reputation is about as low as it's gonna get, you run the event back again, which again, I don't necessarily have a problem with. But then you flip assets and then you sell them. This is not good. Now I played the new, I played the event. Maybe I shouldn't use the word new. I played the event. I like the event because I do like some of the old arcade game modes. I would love to play the Grand Larceny event again sometime. I like the Showdown event. Now, is there a reason I can't just play these events in custom games? Who knows? Who knows? I think everyone has an assumption based off of watching my videos that it has something to do with the engineering backend because it's a no-brainer if you have the ability to do it. So there has to be something in the way preventing it. The theory that I had, right, when I heard about the recolored skins, this went back to a theory that I've been floating around for a while. I think Ubisoft is planning something really big in year 10. I don't know exactly what that's gonna look like, but the fact that the actual amount of content has slowed down, the fact that they're not adding a new map this year tells me that they don't want to overload the plane. I would prefer if they were just, you know, honest about that, but I understand that maybe people in the marketing room know some things that I don't know. However, this event does not help that theory stand because they did make new assets. They made 3 new player models worth of assets for this particular mode, running it back with the same kind of retro-futurist robotic sort of theme. So I don't know if that is the issue. What people are really upset about here is the fact that these reskinned skins are being charged for the same price as the original ones. I mean, this one is called Golden Construct, and it's not golden, okay? That's blue. That is the opposite. So we're having some real big issues here in terms of how we are presenting our content to our player base. Now, I understand that you can purchase these bundles with Renown. I understand that. So that is technically free. If you play the game a crap ton, you can buy all this stuff for free. However, the amount of Renown is quite high to guarantee access to all of the content, as is true for all of these events. And so that is obviously a pricing tactic to incentivize people to buy R6 creds. I don't have a problem with that. Make your money, but I do think it is important to calculate that into the conversation. And I hate making skins seem like content, because personally, I don't think cosmetics are content. But I do think there is a way to sell it without irritating the living heck out of your audience, and this is not the way to do it. If you are in a position where you cannot keep flooding crap into the code base, as I theorize, then you should not be charging it, right? This kind of stuff. You should not be charging the same amount. It should either be, honestly, it should either be free, or there should be like a challenge or something that you can do to unlock it. Like maybe you can, I don't know, shit, add like a fucking Pokemon evolution thing. Like maybe you do enough Mute Protocol and then you get like a token and then you can flip it into like a blue. I don't know, man. Just anything that doesn't involve real money transactions for old stuff, right? That you're marketing as new stuff, that should be avoided. And I don't really know whose responsibility that is, but I don't think it's up to the people that, you know, sit down and then they're like, okay, we have to make gold blue. So now you're paying for the color blue. This kind of gets back to a general theme where people seem to be pointing out that we don't really get A, as much cosmetic content as we used to, and B, a lot of the cosmetic content we get isn't really as involved as we originally remember. That is one argument I've always conceded when it comes down to each season. I feel like not having all of these skins, right, that you could get every season, like during Red Crow, during Velvet Shell. Those 2 seasons in particular had some really good skins. And I understand that they can't do anything like Val is doing just because it's like, it's too much crap, right? I don't think it's particularly necessary for this kind of game to have a bunch of flashy animations and like inspect stuff. God knows if they did an inspect animation for every single gun in this game, that would take who knows how long, right? And then again, we would get into the whole damned if you do, damned if you don't thing with Ubisoft, where if you allocate somebody to work on inspect animations, then Reddit's gonna be like, well, how come they're not working on... Why aren't they working on anything else? You know, which I don't work at Ubisoft, so I don't know what people are specifically working on versus who isn't working on something. I just know that there is a general malaise with live service pricing models. Take Apex Legends, for example. I never thought that I would see Apex Legends on my radar. Some people, they don't really follow, you know, the whole gaming industry at large. I play a lot of different games. Sometimes I still play Overwatch 2 on occasion. I actually do like Overwatch right now. I like the gunplay. But I understand why people don't want to play it. And Apex came on my radar recently. And this was one of those games where I figured the gameplay for that game was unique enough, right? That's the last attempt that we've made at movement shooters at a mainstream market. I know that it's not quite like Titanfall. It doesn't have, you know, quite as fast and snappy gunplay and movement. I get it. It's not Titanfall, but it is still, it is comparably faster to everything else that has the same kind of level of popularity, right? I would say out of the, the live service pantheon, Apex is definitely the most movement focused, the most movement oriented. And I think that's good. I think that's managed to keep it, it's allowed it to stand out in the market. And I always figured that people who want that particular kind of gameplay experience will stick around, even if there are elements of EA's live service practices that are not great. And that doesn't seem to be happening. Whatever happened recently with this battle pass, I guess the battle passes used to be free and now they're charging for them. And just looking at this graphic, it looks like one of my buddies, Chowderhead, likened it to an MMO content graphic, like when they say, hey, here's all the stuff we're gonna add in the year. And it's just really, really clear that the content models, right? What the people at the top floor, right? What the corpos want is not the same thing as what the players want. And this just kind of relays into a point I've also brought up consistently, that I don't necessarily have a problem with live service. That's not the issue that I have. In fact, a lot of the games that we played during the whole, golden era of John Gun Guy Xbox 360, those were, in essence, the bedrock for live service. You had map packs that came out that, when you adjust for inflation, were pretty freaking expensive, and they demarcated the player base. They put a delineation between people who had the map packs and people who didn't. You had to separate the matchmaking systems. So usually in these videos, I'll say something along the lines of, yeah, Ubisoft's in an unwinnable situation. I think they are in an unwinnable situation, but this does not help. I think that at a certain point, I'm gonna be critical here. I think Ubisoft has to adopt a little bit of self-awareness and a little bit of caution with their monetization strategies and run it through a couple more self-checks before they decide to go forward with them. Because I do think that if they really are planning something big for year 10, because that's the only way that I can see any justification for no new map, dialing back the content. I even think that, to an extent, just having smaller models, like the reason that Deimos has a small revolver as an asset, right? I think that there are so many things going on here that they're not talking about, and I think it's probably smart to not talk about it. Because if they say that they're working on it, again, who's going to believe them? And two, they're not going to gain anything from it. But at the same time, this is the business and it stinks, but dealing with negative feedback is a part of the job. And one of the things that Ubisoft is really good at is understanding when to open their mouth and when to keep it closed. Right now, they're keeping it closed. But I would like a little bit more communication on this particular front. I would like to know if there is a reason why the actual amount of stuff being injected into the game isn't as much as it used to be. I think there's probably two things that are right at the same time. I think there's a business strategy here, and I also think there's a practical reality of the engineering and the 80-million-year-old engine that they're working on right now. Like, I don't know how much longer we can keep going forward here with Siege being the way it is, with it being this really, really fragile, like, delicate metaverse, like, where if you put the wrong thing in the wrong place at the wrong time, then the entire system just breaks in half, like Code Lyoko, like the whole world just collapses in on itself. Like, oh God, we made a color red instead of blue. Like, dude, this is not sustainable. You have to do something here. I'm sure that you're already working on it. I'm sure that there are people from Ubisoft watching the video like, I can't talk about it right now. I understand why you can't talk about it. But for my audience, and because I'm a content creator, I'm gonna try to be honest with them and just explain what I think I'm seeing. That being said, your engineering issues, your back-end stuff, shouldn't affect the customer's relationship with the product to the point where it impacts their decision-making with their wallet. And so that's where I start to notice issues. Not even necessarily from an ethics point of view, like it's a video game, you can spend money on the freaking gun colors or player model colors if you want. If we want to talk about ethics, we could take a look at Counter-Strike. I mean, holy crap, like the amount of free passes that Counter-Strike gets with what is essentially just legal gambling for kids, to the point where you've had European countries go after Valve, go after EA in the past, right, for the whole stipulation that, dude, like, my kid wants to be Luke Skywalker. And then he just took my credit card out of my purse and now $200 are on my account because my kid wanted to be Luke Skywalker. Like, fuck you. Like, figure out your shit now. And I think at a certain point, it does need to come down to legislation. I think there needs to be a serious conversation about what constitutes content in a live service game. I think we need to have a serious talk and an actual definition of what is content. Because to me, skins aren't content. I've never considered skins content. I'm weird. I remember when I was playing the game in year 2, when I first started streaming, I didn't put skins on any of my guns. I didn't really understand the culture like that. I wasn't really plugged into the, you know, the FPS bro kind of scene that way. I played a lot of Call of Duty growing up, but even then I always put a certain kind of mental distance between myself and the product that I was interfacing with, because it's not real. But people treat this stuff as like fashion. They treat it as a sort of personal fashion, and it means something to people. The Destiny situation, I was always really shocked by how Destiny got into drama when they added like a Mass Effect looking skin to the shop that you don't have to buy. And then people are like, this is too expensive. And it's like, okay, well, you can just avoid buying it, right? No! So clearly there's something going on with what people value. And from a PR point of view, from a perception point of view, from are people interfacing with my product? Do people want to give me money? If you want people to continue giving you money, you can't just ignore that again and again and again. Sometimes you gotta ignore it. Sometimes the feedback is not helpful, like Rank 2.0 situation. A lot of that is just, you know, a lot of that is whining. Ignore whining, right? You gotta ignore whining, but you can't ignore when people have a genuine critique. And so I think every live service company, right? Every company that puts out a live service game is struggling to figure out what is whining, what is genuine feedback. And in this case, I don't think everybody's whining about this. I think the criticism is warranted here, and I'm not gonna buy any of these skins. Personally, right now, Ubisoft needs to do everything they can to reestablish that they're here for the player base and they want to commit themselves to this vision of 100 operators. I believe them when they say that they want to get to 100 operators. I believe at the beginning of Operation New Blood, there were reasons for people to be upset. I don't think that necessarily all the feedback comes from people being upset about the lack of content as much as it is they don't like the game, and so this kind of reinforces their, you know, dissatisfaction. But based off of the near universal disagreement here with the content strategy for this particular event for Mute Protocol and basically flipping assets for money, I think that Ubisoft needs to look themselves in the mirror this time and go, hey, are we doing a little bit too much with the skin stuff? You know, like personally, I wasn't upset about the membership for various reasons. But you could avoid buying the membership. You could say, I don't want this. And it was new stuff. You could say this stuff sucks or this stuff is good, but at least it was new stuff. With this isn't new stuff and you're charging for it. So that is an important distinction. I think that this is a yikers. This is a one-way trip to Yikers Island. And I really hope Ubisoft does some self-assessment here, because if it's bad now, we have the rest of year 9 to get to before we get to year 10. We're not even halfway. It's going to be a long year 9. I really, really hope they have their A game on year 9 season 3. I believe that year 9 season 3 is going to be, you know, from what I can assume, is going to be a pretty decent season. The staff that I have seen on Twitter talk about it publicly seem to be excited about it. I just don't want that to be muted by crap like this. So yeah, long story short, you can do the reflip stuff. I'm not necessarily super thrilled about that, but don't charge people money for it. That's a great way to, don't charge money for it. That's a great way to generate bad press, and you don't need that kind of heat right now. I'm trying to help you, Ubi, I promise. If you guys like this video, be sure to subscribe for more, like it, and give it a like. I really appreciate it. It helps me. And I'll see you guys in the next Yap Sesh tomorrow.